We are interviewing Miss Rosanna from New Orleans, Louisiana for Dignities in Schools and Amplified Justice. So, I know you have a lot and a lot of stories because you've been an advocate and a parent for many years. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced with schools?
Oh my goodness. As you said, where do I start? My challenges started with a gifted child probably at the age of pre-K, whatever pre-K is. Once Rasan entered pre-K, he was gifted, and once you're gifted and you start doing other things because you finished your ABCs, because you already know them, gifted kids get labeled. So Rasan started getting suspended in kindergarten.
In kindergarten.
In kindergarten.
What on earth could they have possibly suspended him for in kindergarten?
One thing that he was suspended for is because the teacher said that I was talking about her. I actually didn't know this woman in her personal life, and Rasan was the blunt of that. She went to Xavier, and Xavier would do these functions. My father was a jazz musician. I was singing, and some kind of way it got back to her that I said that she was a drunk. I had nothing. I don't drink. I wasn't worried about that. I just was there. And so when we got back to school, Rasan was suspended. They never did say exactly why, but yes, that's when he got suspended early on, and he had problems because he was a gifted child. It started really early.
Did you see some stuff like that happening with other young people who were gifted?
Me being after Katrina, well, this is right before Katrina, but being a stressed out single parent, he was my first child. I did not know about gifted, but because I had taught, I knew that his spectrum was much higher than most of the kids that I was teaching. I've taught pre-K 3 all the way up to college. So at that time, by the time I had Rasan, I'm about 32 at this point. I know what gifted looks like. So for me, I was trying to get them to get me the help that I need to get him where he needed to be. And it was totally a problem. Like, you think your child is gifted just because you say that he's gifted. And I'm like, nope, that's not actually true. So yeah, I'm pregnant with Cassidy. I'm trying to get Rasan where the help that he needed because he was on the gifted spectrum, and it was difficult. As if you have any kid that have any kinds of special needs, it's not going to happen. It's just not happening. So yes.
So what would you say after that challenge? Like, what would you say was your next big challenge?
So we're going to fast forward. My next big challenge was Hurricane Katrina. I had finally gotten him into a school with another language, which was ISL. So I figured that would offset everything that he knew in English already by learning another language. So Hurricane Katrina hits. Bam, we're in Oxford, Mississippi. Again, this is a gifted child. I was in a predominantly white area. There weren't that many black students. When you have a male child who is smart, white teachers look at that as defiant. And I'm looking at the picture that's sitting across from me where Rasan was in Oxford, Mississippi. He was labeled the child from New Orleans. And I kept saying, he has a name, and his name is Rasan. So just so happened they go and take a nature walk. Did I mention that my mother was a florist? So Rasan has been around all sorts of flowers and different things. So they take a nature walk, and the teacher said, that's some sort of flower, whatever it is. And he says, no, actually, that's a magnolia. And she was like, oh, I dare you say what it is when I said it's this. He said, but that's not what it is. And she was like, how does a boy know anything about landscape, flowers, or anything like that? Well, as I mentioned, we all grew up in a florist shop. So that was the first thing that made me really livid. A black boy from Hurricane Katrina coming from New Orleans wasn't supposed to know anything. They figured that we were totally, it's a misconception. All black boys, they gotta be dumb, right? They can't know anything. But his grades were par none. Even after the transition from the hurricane, his grades were still at A's and B's with all of that stuff that happened. And I just kept telling him, don't really show your brilliance, just let's get out of school this year. And I find myself saying that year after year, don't really, answer the teachers. You don't really answer the teachers because they're going to look at you as being challenging when you ask questions and smart at the mouth. But again, I kept trying to get him the help that he needed because he was gifted. And I knew this. So.
And so any other big challenges with your son that jump out in your mind?
Everything jumps out. His whole school career has been challenging from kindergarten to 12th grade. There's never been a grade where Rasan did not have a challenge. We come back to New Orleans and I'm being told that he should have Ritalin. And I asked them, what medical school did any one of them graduate from? It was none. And it was an attack on me. I worked at the school. I worked at a lot of the schools that he attended because I knew that my child would be attacked, being bullied for being smart, wearing glasses, being quiet, reading a book during recess. He didn't play sports, right? That is an issue for a lot of other black boys. Like, what is the matter with him? He don't want to play football? No. He don't play basketball? No. But he did love music. He did love music and he did love band. So that was a little relief for me being in elementary school and being able to play in the band. But then they took that away because they said he was too small to play the drums. So that's another important point. The arts are very important for kids. And that's something that has been totally left out of school. So we'll jump from the 3rd grade. He needed to be on Ritalin. Then he gets to another school, which I finally said, enough is enough. If y'all have a detention system set up, then you need to have gifted classes. I called Baton Rouge. I said, my son, who, oh my God, let me back up. His 5th grade teacher saw his brilliance and said, Miss Ison, no matter what I have to do, I'm going to get him into gifted. And he was like, now this lady must be trying to get me killed. I didn't say killed. I said killed. He was going to a school that had, I want to say 5th grade to 12th grade, right? That's when they was merging all the small kids with the bigger school. So this lady, she took interest in my child and she got him into gifted. Now he failed the gifted test. He was like, I'm already getting bullied. I'm already getting beat up because you here in the school. Why would you want me to be in gifted, Mom? So I had to bribe him. The bribe was, if you pass this test, I'm going to get you some wrestling tickets. We say wrestling in New Orleans, but some wrestling tickets. He said, you're going to give me some wrestling tickets if I pass the gifted test? Boom. I said, yes. So we go into the test, and Rasan is the type of person that will not look you in the eye. He looks off and he looks away. So he gets in there, he's not looking, he looks around, and he said, I could beat everybody in here. And I was like, it's not a competition, just do it for yourself. Again, a white woman who does not understand black children looked at my son because he wasn't looking directly at her and said, oh, he'll never pass the test. Scores come back. She called me on the phone and she said, Miss Ison, I would like to apologize to you for what I said about your son. I said, well, great. She said, because he scored like on he's in the 5th grade. He scored like on a 12th grade level. I said, that's what I was trying to tell you. He can retain stuff by listening. He does not have to look at you. He's the type of person that doesn't have to study. He see it once. He knows this. And, of course, I had to bribe him, right? So it's always a white teacher that has her preconceived notions about what a black boy is supposed to know and how he's supposed to function. So that's fifth grade. We get to 7th and 8th grade. 6th grade, they didn't do his IEP. And that teacher also told me that he should get Ritalin. And I called the state and said, you have a teacher that's acting as a doctor. Yada, yada, yada. Finally, Rasan gets his gifted teacher. And it's an older black lady. And lo and behold, the way this woman kept his attention is because that was Lil Wayne's gifted teacher. Did y'all know that Lil Wayne was gifted? Anyway, Rasan and Lil Wayne had the same gifted teacher. They pulled him up for this woman. He didn't get all the services that he was supposed to get. I mean, detention constantly. He was put out of class constantly because the Teach of America people didn't know how to handle someone on his level. These were college kids that had never taught and didn't have any children, and they were constantly telling me as a black parent what I should do with my child, yet they never had kids. First day of 8th grade, I get called in to the school. No, the night before the first day, I get called by Miss Yoon is her name, Yoon. She's an Asian woman, and it was late at night, and she says to me, tomorrow's the first day of school, and I'm sure that he does not have his work. I said, oh, the books that he was supposed to read? Not only does he have it, he'll give it to you on tomorrow. I said, now, teacher to teacher, you don't call a parent at 8 o'clock at night and tell them what they're not supposed to have. I said, I see that this relationship is not going to be very, 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 cohesive, because you're telling me what my son is not going to have, and you're telling me what he should and shouldn't think. Fast forward to the middle of the school year. I get called off of my job to come to the school, and I'm thinking something is wrong. This is 8th grade year. And she walks me around the classroom, and she stops. She was like, this child did a report, and this is a police officer. This child did a report, and this is a basketball player. This child did a report, and this child is a basketball, football, whatever. Maybe they had 1 or 2 doctors, and maybe they had a lawyer. She walks me to Rasan's thing, and I see his work, and I look at it, and I'm smiling from ear to ear. And she said, look at this. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with it? Basically, his artwork said, or his report said, that he wanted to be a king and a leader. And she said, well, that will never happen. And I told her, I beg to differ. So that was 8th grade. His 8th grade year, again, being bullied, being spat on, all kinds of things was going on at the 8th grade. There was one teacher that took interest in him, and this is a guy that did poetry, and Rasan was able to get into NOCA. Ooh, NOCA. I'm thinking, finally, there's a place for a misfit to fit in. Well, a couple of months into his 9th grade year, it's cold outside. I'm having all sorts of issues with trying to get my house back together, trying to get gainful employment, just trying to live as a black woman. We were homeless. We did not have a place to stay. Nobody knew that. My daughter is Cassidy. She's going to talk about her experience, and both of them were really good students, especially with the experience that we had. So we get to NOCA, and Rasan gets expelled from NOCA for coming to school, crossing across the street. I'm a late parent. I was trying to get 2 kids to 2 different places. There was no buses for Audubon because those are upper echelon people. There's no buses. Well, there were buses for NOCA, but that was for the kids who were coming from the North Shore and Slidell. There was buses for them, and there was, transportation for them. So 9th grade year, couple of days after he makes 15 years old, Rasan gets expelled from NOCA. So after that expulsion, he had problems. 9th grade, he didn't get to go back to school 9th grade. He had to re-enter into the school in 10th grade. Let's just fast forward to 12th grade. 12th grade, last day of school, graduation day, we find out that he is not graduating from school because they hid his work and they had it locked up. And it was an incident with the teacher, and they said that the teacher cheated, so the child should repeat the kind of like the school year for a couple of lessons. There was 1,320 lessons that he needed to do. I said, there's not that many lessons in your whole entire career in high school, but that's how many they wanted him to do. So I went and got him a private tutor, and I paid for things. They threw all of my stuff out and said, no, he's not going to graduate because he didn't finish his work. I said, you didn't allow him to finish his work. What you gave us is finished. He said, well, we didn't unlock the rest of it. I said, well, how was he supposed to graduate? So basically it was police officers. It was all sorts of things. It was very traumatic for him. School in New Orleans for my son has been nothing but traumatizing, depressing for the both of us, and something that I would like to change.
So you said a lot, so I'm going to ask you this. What was your experience with resource officers at your son's school, or police at your son's school?
Resource officers at my son's school, yet again, were the cause for him getting suspended. The lady says, just tell me, did you cross across the street? And him be thinking that all black women are nurturing, right? He said, well, yes. But they shouldn't have questioned him without me. They held him till about 6 o'clock that night, wouldn't let me see him, had him in a separate room, and had him to sign himself out of school and put himself in sci-fi. Remember, we were homeless. I said, well, where's the bus going to pick up a homeless child from? I get him here the best way I can. The officers were the ones that caused most of the problems. Probably not for the white kids, but definitely for the black kids. It was always a two-edged sword with that.
Okay, so because, you told us your son's entire story, I'm gonna ask you the two last questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, what do you love about your community?
You know what? What I love about my community is I put a cry out for help saying, straight A student expelled for crossing the street. And this is where I was able to meet the very people, you people, that came and helped me and assist me with his entire walk. My children had to have assistance from 3rd grade to 7th grade for Cassidy, which was basically the entire time. Rasan needed help his entire time. It was very exhausting, and without my community, no one knew what I was going through. I didn't know that kids was being tormented at school. I come from, you listen to your elders. So the first couple of years with Rasan, I was thinking that it was just him, because that's how our community is raised. You listen to your elders, and what your elders say goes. And finally, I was seeing, well, that's not true. This is not making sense. And I started listening more to my son and believing what it is that he was saying. So in terms of my community, I would not have made it without Ashana Begard. She walked me through his last 4 years of school. I tell you, it was gruesome. It was grueling. No child and mother should have ever had to experience that, because education is a right. It's not a privilege. Education was a right that was denied him from birth.
So the last question, what solutions would you offer to prevent youth from being pushed out of school?
That is a hard question to answer. The people that are in our schools, they don't want you there. They want the money. They don't want the kids there. It's not like I said, like it was for me, that there was community, that you could walk from your house to the school. Community is key. Just like the Hurricane Katrina thing, your community was everything to you. Nobody was going to do you anything, because you could walk past Miss Bertha's house and Miss Bertha say, go your behind home, change your clothes before you come out here and play. Did you eat something? Go into, you had community of people that looked out for you, and all of that has been taken away because there's no community, and everybody watched out for each other because single parents. I was a latchkey kid, right? That lady next door, I never saw her face. She would tell my mama what time I got outside the house, what time I got inside the house, She would tell my mama everything, and there were no cell phones, okay? That's the difference between now and then. People don't want you to tell their kids anything. People don't want you to try to, help the kids. And the kids now, not all of them, but some of them, you know the difference, that if they had a mother, a grandmother, an auntie, and a cousin in the house, they behave differently than some of these kids. So I would say these schools need to give the schools back to the community, because community is love. Community is safety. Community is all that we have ever had in our lives. So give the charter schools, no.